We are here on Djuma and Arathusa. It's a beautiful afternoon. There are a few clouds building to the south, which may bring rain, but hopefully not during the drive this afternoon. And we are here at the Vuyatela Dam, and we've come across 3 buffalo bulls that have just come in to start drinking. And it'd be interesting if they knew that there was a lion in the area potentially, because there could well be a lion. If we just keep our eyes open, we may see a lion pop into shots at any stage. Oh, there it is. Only kidding, it's just Brian. He's on camera this afternoon, and he had a lion on his thumb as today's little face. And each day it does change. It's never been the same face. I don't know how he always comes up with different ones. But Brian's on camera this afternoon, and Mark and Vim are out on the other vehicle. They've headed across to Arathusa, which is another property that we can traverse here in the Sabi Sands. We sadly haven't spent too much time on there. So Mark's headed across this afternoon to see what's going on there. And myself and Brian plan to follow up on leopard initially. There were some tracks in this area this morning. And then thereafter head to the lion that Mark saw this morning that were apparently mating. So that would be something that both myself and Brian would love to see, and I'm sure a lot of you would love to see as well. So to any newcomers, welcome on board. And to all the regulars, welcome back. And to do this on Twitter, you be wallowing here for a couple of hours, I guess. And we will continue looking around. It's very hot this afternoon in the sun. Thankfully,
I was hoping we were going to get to them. Hi everybody, my name is Mark, and I have Vim with me on camera today. And welcome to our, hopefully we're not going to lose you too, because I'm also in, but this is part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And I just came along to this very big dam on our northern eastern boundary, just to see if there'd be something here. I can see some hippo in the water, hoping that maybe some elephants would make an appearance, since this is a corner of the whole Sabi Sand where elephants actually flood through into Manyeleti and the Greater Kruger National Park. I suppose in a way it's quite a distinct route for them. Welcome to our afternoon drive. Welcome to a beautiful weekend afternoon. For us it's Saturday. Hope you're all going to enjoy our drive this afternoon. Between Scott and myself, we're going to be trying different areas and seeing if we can't bring you the best that we can in a combination of here at Djuma as well as Arathusa Safari property. And combined, this area is about 2,000 hectares. So it's quite an ample area for us to drive in one afternoon. In fact, we can't even cover that kind of area in one afternoon. And what we're going to do is we're going to be moving over to Arathusa, and I think Scott might be, and we discussed it, but he might be heading over to see what's happening with the lion in the far east. In fact, the direct opposite corner is a particular area where the sticks lion is, the youngest girls. Makes us more trying to get things. Since they're not people that would straight, can be a little bit dense. Has happened we were ending number 2011, and interestingly, that these two female lionesses that were born now, or rather were born in 2011. They were born early 2011, so they are going on about 4 years old now. 4 years old, and 4 years old, and I think it's the brother. Never mind, no, it's another brother. But these are the two lionesses that are with the Matimbas. I think it's the same lionesses, not I think, wrong statement. They were definitely around a couple of weeks ago when Peter Pretorius was still here. I think it was sort of maybe in the mid of, not a couple of weeks, more than a couple of weeks. But Peter Pretorius was with them, also on Gowrie Main, almost a similar area. And I think one of the first days that I got here at the beginning of December was watching those two Sticks girls trying to chase giraffe. If I'm not mistaken, it was probably them. But sometime in November, before I got here, they were seen mating with one of these Matimbas, or she was. So it's not the first time, which means that she's come into East. She didn't conceive that time, perhaps she's come into estrus. Conversely, it would be very interesting to know that when they were last seen mating on the boundary, was it the other lioness that was mating, and it just so coincides that this happened to be an estrus. Now close enough to lioness to be able to produce cubs of a similar age. Are you seeing something? No. Anyways, let's talk while I drive. Let's continue. We're going to head a little bit to the south and to the west, and we're going to go and see what we might find Arathusa, catch up with maybe some plains game and all sorts of things. While we're heading over there, Scott and Brian and Jigger and the Thumb they'll see what they can find for you, maybe towards those lion mating today. Special moment to actually see lion mating, but to be, especially in a vehicle, to be accepted by that couple and the other lioness, the sixth lioness, to be able to witness it. And we had an experience of having the Nkuhumas not very far away. In fact, I would say it was maybe 400 to 500 meters north of that particular location that we first came across the Nkuhumas this morning. So proximity, they were close enough that they didn't have to be very loud, and it's possibly one of the reasons why they were actually calling during the day is because it was a banter between the two groups, an acknowledgement of their presence, I would say. To fight it out, they need to get aggressive, each group knowing where they were. The fact is that we had the one Matimba male with the two Sticks lionesses. He was mating with them, and then we had the other Matimba male, the one that's been limping. Now it's another interesting thing that I have to thank you for, and I'm going to look at my device quickly because I need to get through some names and things after these warthogs. Just that people sending me a lot of information that I've missed over the last few years that I haven't been here in the Sabi Sands. And some piglet. And some piglet. Hello, piglet. Oh, he's a 2-year-old still hanging around. I think Mom was here earlier. Let's see if we can see them again. Now, I don't know, this might very well be, since we're in the area, there's a Prinia or something shouting at us, but we're in the area where there was a mama pig with 5 piglets. These 3 would be maybe her previous litter who would have hung around for the first year. Now they're 2 years old. I think this is a little boy and the two little girls, and there comes mom. There's mom. Just, oh, and she's got another piglet with her, but she took one look at us and she ran away. Did you catch that? No. Okay. Was very quick behind the guarri bush, but she's called these lot now. So these are like her teenagers that stick around and they help with her new litters. But this little boy, I think this is him at the back now. It looks like it. Yeah, yes, unmistakable. He's gonna have to. His father will probably have a few words with him in the coming year for him to go and find his own family. And if we can see through the back, oh, she's running, she's trotting. She's not happy. It's strange that these teenagers are quite relaxed with us, but she's very nervous. And she keeps coming back to try and get these two, because she's got another piglet with her. And like any teenager, they, well, yeah, we're coming, Ma. We'll be there now. Now. Just now. Later. One of the differences, one of the primary differences between little boys and little girls when it comes to warthog are those actual warts on the face of the warthog. And this little boy, we can see he's got two pairs of warts, one above the snout and one below the eye, and the females have only got one pair. Unfortunately, he's got his back to us, but it's just something to look at. That's one of his sisters. They must be litter mates, him and these two little girls. Sadly not easy to see detail because we're looking into the sun. There now, maybe you can see the little warty protrusions on the face, yeah, of this little boy against the background of the green, just below the eye, and making a triangle with the ear, and then another two just further down the snout. Of course, he's got other little boy bits, but I won't put the camera on. Won't focus on that right now. So, children, thank you. We're gonna leave you. Your mother's gonna get cross with me if I don't. Quite amazing, actually. Maybe we just change position. We'll stay with them a little while. They're quite comical, if we can use that sort of judgment. Try and get a better angle, because youngsters can be very, very fun. They can, if they get into a playful mood, especially if they let us, oh no, relax, children. Want the light right. Say yes. That's better. And look, there's some beautiful flowering jasmine just behind them. Here's jasmine. No, it's not. It's tarria. Tarria is the wild honeysuckle. course, everybody knows warthog as Pumbaa because of the Lion King. Almost everybody. Let's see, let's find them. Oh, was that a branch breaking? Did you hear that?
No.
Headphones on, but you're getting the sound from the mic. Hey, the little boys in the road now. See, they're actually going to let us follow them for a while. So let's do that. How often do we get to actually sit with a couple of warthog? Because normally when we see warthog, they just run off into the bush. I don't know if their mom is the one that had the 5 piglets, because we're in that area where there were only 5 piglets, and then I think last time they were seen was there were only 3. But he's quite a bold little boy. That has the little boy bits that you don't have to see the face to see whether he's a little boy. Oh, that's also a little boy. No, there are 2 little boys, 1 little girl. But he's so much younger. Well, not younger, just smaller. They must be brothers. Little forward, and then I'm going to have to go a little bit back. But yes, that other one is also a little male. And then it's got the sister. The sister's on the far right. It's bumper time for most herbivores now. I mean, it's just a salad smorgasbord of a variety of things for them to eat. And summer, that's all I can say. Sort of all the joy and all the everything that just the word summer conjures in the mind of bounty and pleasure and fun and warm and fuzzy. Do you got the branches in the way?
No, it's fine.
Because I'm going to move again.
Yeah.
See if Mom's going to make an appearance. I'd like to see maybe the age of her other piglet. One that she's trying to keep away. But also maybe it's time to leave the children be. Mom is a little bit hesitant. Let them continue doing what they're supposed to do rather than keep her away from them because of our presence. I guess I didn't choose the best place to turn around, but it was the easiest. So, off we go. Welcome to Djuma, welcome to Wild Earth, welcome to Wild Safari Live. You can tweet us at hashtag Safari Live, you can send us emails, questions at WildEarthTV. And hopefully they'll get whispered in my ear and I can answer them within a short space of time. Sometimes, of course, there might be a lot of things coming in and we just run out of time and questions don't get there because we have a number of them. But if I can, I'll answer it within as soon as it gets in. through. We're on sandy patch. We're going to be heading a little bit southwest to see what we can find in other parts. Now what I'm doing is I've actually got a few things that I need to look through that I can bring up that I should have addressed earlier, maybe on other drives. And also just to thank you for sending info. I'm going through some emails that I got when we were talking about parthenogenetic reproduction, talking about mistletoe, we were talking about a lot of different things over the last couple of weeks. Wow, what is it? Something just whizzed past my ear. And anyways, it was nice to get some emails and it was nice to get some information. What was that ran through here? Mongoose, maybe. Yeah, dwarf mongoose. I can hear them, the grass is just so long. Mistletoe, that was... and then of course there was the other thing that I wanted to remind you of, or remind myself of, to thank, is 2 days ago we were out on quarantine and we had that big early bull. He was eating mushrooms under the marula tree. We had a wonderful day talking about marulas and elephants. But being a very, very big bull elephant, it was hard to convey how big he really was. And so what we did was we didn't move the vehicle or the camera, and after he moved off I went and stood exactly where he had been standing, because I was picking up pieces of mushroom, and I was standing where at one point his back legs and at one point even his front legs, where they had squashed the grasses and the zinnias underneath the marula tree. And then a number of you posted some wonderful pictures, and thank you for that. It was sort of that I guess that's what I was aiming at, is that somebody would do something like that, and whether it was merely the two separate pictures that you could still see markers on the trees, and then there were a couple of you that sent in photos where you had actually drawn lines. And I don't know how you did it, but some of you sent in a photo where you'd actually cut and pasted me and put it next to the tree using the same markers. That gave an almost surrealistic view of what it would have looked like if I had been sitting, or standing underneath that elephant. And he is huge. Because mostly I only sort of really came to underneath his tusk, or sort of around tusk level with my hat. So it's not easy always to try and put across how big some things are, especially when sometimes with the big male lion, and trying to relate the size of the big male lion to something that other people could relate to. Well, we got a flock of quelea here. This was one of the first flocks, and I think that was flying into that big buffalo thorn. There's more in this piece of dead Terminalia. the red-billed quelea, changing the subject because that's what did it. This flock is probably a flock of several hundred, up to maybe 500 from what I could see. Most of them are now sitting in this buffalo thorn, very big buffalo thorn, and if something were to scare them, we'd see a swarm almost. Actually, they're starting to come down now, starting to rain quelea because they're going down into the grasses to eat their seed. But as the lovely greenery develops its seed base or its seed mass for the rest of summer, now going into late summer, these birds are going to increase in number, not only through breeding but just through accumulation, because there's so many of them. And it's one of the last of those really massive populations of creatures that fortunately we haven't yet exploited. And you could almost imagine the passenger pigeons that flew around in numbers very similar to the red-billed quelea. But at the moment I think the red-billed quelea is probably one of the most numerous species on the planet. And towards the early winter, and when the winter months set in, sometimes in the past, I have to add, in the past, I remember times when, in the late Timbavati afternoons of 1994, 1995, watching flocks of millions take up to 15-20 minutes to fly past the sun. And well, now this is a big flock, and hopefully they won't be too decimated. Unfortunately though, being a seed eater, being a finch, being a quelea really, they kind of doomed because they're seed eaters. So for wheat crops, maize crops, well, pretty much anything with seed that we try and produce, millet, you name it, these quelea raid those farmlands. There's a European roller, by the way. We haven't seen too many this season. Raisa told me that their numbers are dropping. Raisa in Finland, thanks for that email. Sorry, Alex, you had a question? Interesting question from Sharon in Pittsburgh, home of pirates. Let's sail on. Do I think animals have a sixth sense? Sixth sense? For example, predicting weather. I don't think, Sharon, I don't think the predicting weather part is actually a sixth sense. I think the whole predicting weather part is just a built-in, natural, instinctive reaction to changes in atmospheric pressure, changes in temperature, because there are, and they're actually not so subtle, might I add, there are quite distinct changes that take place when weather is changing that we as humans ignore because we don't know what those signs mean when they manifest. But it most definitely, that's one thing. But they do have a sixth sense in that it's not quite telepathy, and it's not quite, oh, I thought it was a snake, but it's a broad-tailed paradise wider picking up seed in the road. There he goes. Beautiful bird, and some impala. It's quite hard to describe. There are, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. But there is a way to communicate. There is a way to tap into. It's almost like what it is a universal energy that every living creature, somebody gave the alarm. So they're watching something sort of just to the south of us. There's something that's these females. When we roll forward, we'll see them alarming. I don't want to start the engine. I want to just try and roll forward, but there's some ewes just up here. Everybody was relaxed until they started, and they're looking off to the south. Interestingly, that the way they're looking, that when the herd scattered, I'm going to have to start now because the quarry's in the way. And you'll notice they're not actually bothered by us. There's far more important things happening. There's something that's moving through the bush to the south of us. That, look at them, they're now coming there. As long as they can see the predator, if there is a predator, as long as... What? She can see it. That was a very harsh call. We need to try and look in the same direction that they're looking. There must be something moving through there that has given them the idea that there's a predator. Even though I had started up and I was driving, they still ran right around us. I mean, the herd actually scattered towards us and parted around us. So they are quite convinced, some of these females, that there is something there. As long as they can keep their eye on it, that's the good thing for them. As long as they can keep their eye on it. But if you can watch the predator, you can be sure you're not going to be caught by the predator, because the element of surprise is no longer there. And that female is actually still pregnant, which means she's going to have a very late lamb. I suppose I'm going to have to go and investigate. They might have imagined something. It's not impossible. Thanks, girls. I'll go and investigate for you. Or if I can. I can't even get... I think I can get through here. Other than maybe this way. It's gonna just do too much damage trying to drive around in here, hoping that there's something there. They might have just been alarmed for no reason. One of them gave the alarm call and somebody thought they saw something, and another one thought they heard something, so it was a combined cry-wolf moment. But it doesn't, cry-wolf doesn't really work here because it keeps everybody on their toes, makes sure that you get the kids away from potential crime scene. finished addressing the last question. I'm not sure. Was it interrupted by Impala? Thinking it would be a brief interruption. Turned out to be a bit longer than expected. I know what it is. If I can explain it to you, I'll be talking about something, and then when I see something that I need to concentrate on, it's almost like I clear my mind and all my senses concentrate on what is actually happening at that moment. It comes from being on foot in the bush in many different countries in Africa, doing walking safaris and overnight walking safaris, and being in tune with my surroundings enough that or in such a way that I can feel the mood of something. And it comes back to this previous question about whether animals have a sixth sense, or whether they can tell weather. And yeah, they can tell weather, and that's something that we can do if we tune our if we listen to our bodies and we acknowledge what it is that we're feeling. I don't know how many of you have felt before a big thunderstorm, have to maybe clear your ears, almost like when you're landing in an airplane or when you're driving down to the coast, or you're changing altitude. The pressure in your outer ear is different to the pressure in your inner ear, and often you have to equalize it. It's the same as when you're scuba diving. As soon as you start going underwater and the pressure increases, the pressure on the outside is not the same as the pressure inside. So you have to do things with your bottom jaw and your nose and stuff to equalize that pressure. And I feel it all the time when we're going through high pressure and low pressure cells that cause the weather. I can feel often when I need to hold my nose and blow and pop my ears. And if you feel you have to do that without actually having to change altitude, you know that it's atmospheric pressure that is changing. It's not necessarily anything to do with altitude. So animals automatically feel weather. But there's a universal energy that combines everything, or rather that envelops everything. There's a universal energy on whether it's just, well, it extends beyond the planet. It is just everything that we live in. And I suppose religions call it God, and some of us call it nature, and it doesn't matter what we call it. It is this universal energy that everything lives in and is connected to. So there are ways to pick up the energy of other things, and no one can deny having had really strange experience, whether it's with your pet, just thinking something and your pet almost knowing what you're thinking. I mean, how many people have a pet who's so afraid of the vet or the bathtub that you dare not even think of taking it for fear of the animal picking up your thoughts. And they do. It's exactly what it is. It's not that they understand the lingo and the language of what your thoughts are. It's more an understanding of the energy of what it is and what you're projecting. They automatically know that that's exactly what's going to happen next. And that's part of the energy. So animals, yes, are perceptive to that in far more ways than we are, because I suppose we've developed a vocabulary, we've developed a language that has taken place of the physical communication and the kinetic communication that every living creature actually is part of every day. We've given a lot of that up, and we don't know how to read it anymore. Or we try and we learn. If anybody's interested, you can read anything by Desmond Morris, who was a wonderful observer of animal behavior and turned his attentions to humans. I think one of his famous books was Man Watching. There was a wonderful book called Cat Watching. A land snail that looks a bit sickly. But I think animals of a species and animals of a collective, whether it's a flock of starlings or a murder of crows or a business of mongoose or an obstinacy of buffalo or a journey of giraffe, no matter what it is, when there are animals in a collective, there is a collective behavior that takes place that is beyond verbal or even body language communication. I mean, if you take a look at sometimes the flocks of millions and millions of starlings, and we've already seen today, we have a bird here, the red-billed quelea, which flocks in such numbers that when you see them flying and they move like sardines or starlings, they move in these clouds. If you have to think of the time that it would take for, because of the density, for the message to be transferred from the front individual to maybe the rear individual visually, it would take far too long for that to happen, that it would be physically impossible for the entire flock of millions to turn as one, or the shoal of millions to turn as one. So there is something greater, there is something far greater that allows these things to happen, and that's being part of this whole thing that is just nature's energy, where to some extent there is sort of a sixth sense. There has to be, because survival wouldn't happen without it. Welcome to my Saturday, our Saturday actually, me and the guys. We get to show the world what a slice of bushveld is like here in South Africa. I need to clarify some things. I think I'm going to go this way. We're going to look at some orchids. Since the last time we came down this road, oh wait, stop, I want to look at this drongo in a really nice picture, because, oh, come on drongo, really? You have to fly away. Flew too far away. Okay, win some, lose some. Would have been really beautiful to see it. Would have been really beautiful against the background of, just by the way, that far ridge that we're looking at, that very far ridge, is Cheetah Cutline. Did you know that? No, that's Cheetah Cutline that runs north-south along that ridge. You can see all those big marula trees on the ridge. There's even a moustache tree up there on the ridge. So, alright, I guess I've been hogging the airwaves a little, but now it's time to go to Scott. Scott's got some nice bird stuff for you, and I'm going to continue to look for something, so we'll see you in a short while. Enjoy your time with Scott. Bye for now.
Welcome back. And myself and Brian have stumbled upon a very, very interesting bird's nest. Now it's difficult for you to see, but just about in the center of the shot you will notice a small cup shape in some branches. It's in a small opening that you can see in this bush in the center of the shot. Now this is the nest of a paradise flycatcher, an incredibly beautiful bird. And we were actually looking in this bush because there are quite a few starlings alarm calling. So we stopped to investigate, and I was scanning through the bush with my binoculars, hoping to find a snake, and then stumbled upon this bird's nest. And oh, it looks like the male might be coming back down to land on it. Myself and Brian have been waiting here since probably around 15 minutes now waiting for the male to return, and he has just flown back into the bush that we're looking at. So he is fluttering around there, and at any second I'm hoping that he's going to come back down and land on this tiny cup-shaped nest. You'll be amazed by how small the nest is when you see the bird land on it. It's not a big bird, but it's got an exceptionally long tail. It's bright orange with a blue mantle. It's a very pretty bird, and I'm just hoping any second now he is going to fly down and land on the nest. If not him, the female. They're both very pretty. The female lacks the long orange tail streamer, and that's how you differentiate between the two. The male's got a much longer tail. And let's hope there's not a snake in that bush. I continued to scan after finding the nest and couldn't see any snake. But if there is one in there, I'm not sure if there's eggs in that nest at the moment or if there's chicks. But either way, I hope there's not a snake in that tree. The reason why we got lured down to this little bush was we were actually trying to get a better angle on a kingfisher that I personally haven't showed you yet, and it's called the giant kingfisher, the biggest of the kingfisher we get in this area, and sadly it's no longer visible from where we are. But maybe once we move on from this nest we will be able to get you a few shots of the giant kingfisher, or ideally it would start hunting nearby to where we are. We are at Buffalo's Hook Dam now, and there's not too much going on here other than the bird life that has kept us here. Come on, paradise flycatcher. Well, the reason why I asked Alex in Final Control to link back to us was because we did see both the male and the female fluttering around this tree. And I was hoping we'd be able to get a shot of them coming down to land on the nest. But at the moment, I'm beginning to wonder if they're potentially a little bit scared of our presence. We're certainly not nearby. We're about 30 meters away, parked in some bushes here. So we're certainly not too close, I don't think. And during these hot hours of the day, often the birds can be some of the best animals to view because they are seemingly more active during the hot hours. So while we wait for things to cool down, I really would like to stay here and see if this bird doesn't come back down and land on the nest. And just to be able to show you the bird would be wonderful, because they are quite secretive birds that like thick riparian vegetation. So to get you another shot of this bird would be very difficult unless it is on the nest, because they are quite skittish. However, I do understand that sitting here waiting for much longer may not be the most thrilling thing you could do with your time. So let's give it 1 more minute, and in the next minute or so, if it doesn't come back down, maybe Alex will be able to switch back to Mark and see what he's up to. He's more active than us at the moment, I think, exploring. And myself and Brian will invest a little bit more time here to see if they don't come back to the nest, and if they do, we can always, of course, switch back to us. Oh, one's just landed in the tree again. So it looks like the female's just come back into the tree. Oh, and she's gone out the tree. Oh, back into the tree. Now sadly, as you can see, because it is very thick and we are fighting against contrasting light between the sun on the external leaves and the shady part where the nest is, but they are fluttering around nearby to that nest. And my confidence in them coming to land on the nest has just increased dramatically in the last few seconds, so fingers crossed I'll be right. When you're guiding, it's always a risky business, investing too much time in something, and it's a fine line between when to cut your losses and back out and when to carry on trying. So this is one of the scenarios that I'm facing now, but luckily, like I said, we could always switch back to mark, which I think we should do now. Until one does pop back down onto the nest, we will let you head back across to Mark. So I'll just wait for Alex to get a hold of Mark and let him know, and then we'll cut back to him. So Mark is ready, and so am I, from myself and Brian at the African flycatcher, Paradise flycatcher nest. We will not move anywhere for the next while, and hopefully they will return to the nest and we'll be able to show you a shot of this beautiful bird. But until then, enjoy the adventure with Mark.
Welcome back. And well, you know, I can't resist a flower, especially one that I can dedicate to all you ladies out there. And this is the wild honeysuckle. Known as Turia. I don't know how to pronounce these things, I just know what they are. Turia. I call it Turia. I have some at home. I treasure the little plants that I do have at home. For some reason, that no matter how old they are, they just don't ever get any bigger. Partly due to the very low rainfall, and partly due to, I suppose, every now and then an elephant or something comes, and even anything from the duiker to the elephant that comes past picks a little piece of it and walks away. I have this little square thatched awning that I have my table. I have a yellow wood table that I set up underneath that little awning, and that's where I sit and do whatever I do most of the time. And right on the edge of that, almost growing out of the concrete of the floor, because the plinth of that, the base of that, used to be an old cold room in the 1960s and early 70s, or going into the 70s. We used to have this double-walled, almost cold room with an aluminum, or aluminium as we call it in the rest of the world, corrugated aluminium tank on top that perpetually leaked. And it leaked down into this cold room that was an old-fashioned cold room. Basically, it was 2 layers of brick with coke or a type of coal in between, and with the water dribbling down, what would happen was the air evaporating. That would, of course, cause the cooling effect, and it would create this really cool cold room. And it had As a kid, it had this little rusty metal door on it. And I think the first time that I ever arrived there, I was taken there as a kid. We had the remains of it, the smelly remains, might I add, been killed by a leopard and dragged in there. Anyways, as soon as I could, when I was old enough, I actually broke it down. I put up a new water tank. I think I was 21 at the time. It was 1921 at the time. It was 1980 something. And I put up a new water tank and stand, and I breaking down that structure left the gap between the two walls that had the insulation of the coke. And so many plants have grown in that. Aloes that I've planted, and raisin bush that have been brought in by birds and baboons. But there's that one little honeysuckle that grows in there that hasn't really changed in the last 15 years or more. So I guess it's kind of stunted. And every season it has flowers, and I've missed them this year. And when it has flowers and it seeds, I throw the seeds everywhere, and there are a bunch of other honeysuckles growing up that will help to give me that little bit of show of flowers when they do. Amongst other things that I've got a lot of jasmine that should be flowering now. I'm missing the height of summer at home, but I can't possibly get better than being able to spend time here in the Sabi Sands once again. Look at this, Bjorn. His tracks are on top of ours from this morning. This young male leopard, the brat, he's a brat. Today he's a brat because we found his tracks this morning actually heading that way. And we went all the way to Twin Dams. We went looking for him, and luckily enough found some other cats, some big cats. But now his tracks are on top of ours after this morning. This could be quarantine male, or it could be Djuma. So we will go back that way and maybe follow. See if we can follow. Okay, Alex, what you got for me? Hello, Danielle. Danielle is in Holland, the Netherlands. Thanks for the question, Danielle. And it's a very interesting, it's a very nice question, because, well, Danielle's question was, do I still learn something every time I go out on drive? And it's interesting because, yes, sometimes I do. There's sometimes that I'll go out on drive and I might not come across something. Whether it's new or not is a different matter, but whether it's a question that gets raised, that's the question. Is there might be things that I see all the time, but merely raising a new question sees it in a different light. So, well, very much so. I think it's vital that understanding that no matter how much time you can spend in nature, you can never stop seeing something new. There will always be something new. Even seeing the same animals, the same birds, living with the same trees, there is always something new or unexpected that you can find that makes it just so phenomenal to be out here every day. Because it's not so much the act of actually learning or seeing something new, it's the very thing, it's the very possibility of there seeing something so unique and so unbelievable. I forgot to mention it earlier. Look, there's a chick sticking its head out of the weaver nest. Look at that. Waiting for its food to come. See, right now, something that is totally unexpected. weaver that is just starting to grow, starting to get its feathers. The colony is making so much noise, as you can hear, and clearly it's all peaceful noises, because it's not only the weaver nest colony, the sounds like they're buffalo weavers and a bunch of other birds. But peaceful sounds that there's no need for alarm, and that allows chicks to poke their heads out of the nest and start learning a little bit about what it is to be a weaver, about the life that they're about to enter. It's no good for a chick to be cooped up in the nest all the time, and the first time it steps out of the nest is the first time it sees the big wide world. Waiting for mom or dad to come back with a caterpillar or something. The interesting thing is that despite all the adults that are flying around and making a lot of noise, this chick is not reacting to any of their calls, and to us all of these calls sound very, very much the same. But you'll see how excited that it gets, and we're going to wait here until it happens, even if it takes 2 months. But this chick is going to react as soon as it hears its own parent. And there are others flying to the nest right next to it that it's not even budging. But I don't think it'll take too long for one of them to come back. So I'm going to keep quiet. Let's listen and let's watch and wait. I forgot to mention to you all that we saw a bumba just before we started drive, Jim and I, as we were leaving camp. Quite a lot of snake activity today, and if there were any snakes nearby, with this kind of colony of weavers, you can be guaranteed that one of them will see it and there'll be an outcry, and it would change the behavior entirely. None of the chicks would poke their head out if there were weavers alarming. So it's very lucky that we're not considered prey, that we've actually been allowed to drive up fairly close to the colony. And I guess they're just used to the fact that vehicles are just part of their lives. Okay, if these parents don't come back pretty soon, I'm calling social services. Uh-huh. Maybe you're not a chick. You're just a mama that's been... Well, I couldn't see very well against the light. But that's the female. Maybe what it is that... Well, we have to wait and see now. I thought it was a chick waiting for food. Or maybe it's just mum having a breather, seeing what's going on. Can you see the nest on the left as well? Another female that's, I guess, just observing. Yeah, how wrong I can be. Learn something new every day. Maybe just females just observing the comings and goings to protect what might be very, very young or hatchlings. We will no doubt be watching these nests over the next few days, every time we come past Treehouse Dam. Maybe we will see the youngsters poke their heads out like that. So, nice to sort of wait it out and see what happens. And I was wrong. It was a mom, not a baby. Second thoughts. This way. We do need to get west a little bit. We want to go and see some things, see if we can find anything on Arathusa. As much as the weaver birds strip all the foliage from the ends of those branches where they build their nests, and as much as they try and prevent predators from getting to their nests by building them over water and trying to limit the amount of predation that is possible, there are always things that are going to get to the nests, unfortunately. And one of the snakes that is famous for that is a snake we call the boomslang. It's probably one of Africa's most venomous snakes. However, it is not a snake that readily bites. It's not a snake that really is much of a danger. I've often lived with boomslang around me that have posed no threat whatsoever, and as long as one respects them, there's no need to remove them or affect them in any way. Their fangs are much smaller, they're fixed fangs, they're set further back in the jaw. It's not, don't ever forget that a snake that is referred to as a back fang snake doesn't mean that it's so far back in the jaw that it can be forgotten about. They're just fangs that are set much further back. And while it does take a little bit more to inject venom, it's not impossible that they can. So, as with anything in life, really, it's just a healthy respect for their existence, and if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone, and they're actually, in some ways, good to have around. Unfortunately, though, they do feed on some quite iconic creatures that we tend to love. Boomslang love to eat chameleons, and they also love to raid birds' nests. And they're one of the few snakes that have the agility and the mobility to be able to do so. But I've seen on many, many occasions how a colony of weavers will rally together, much like baboon would do against a leopard or buffalo against lion, how they will rally together and actually mob the snake to such an extent that the snake has nothing, or rather has no other option other than to flee or to just drop out of the tree and try and get away before it's injured too badly. So it's kind of like live to fight another day type of thing. And just because something has venom and because it has the reputation that a snake has doesn't mean to say that it's going to get its way every time. Just as the lion and the leopard and the cheetah and the hyena and the wild dog, just as they are not overly successful predators, or let me rephrase it, the fact is that nothing really is that successful. Everything has to miss more than they hit, and that just helps balance a little bit of the energy dynamics where animals are allowed to survive, and those moments when they do survive give them lessons in life to be able to survive better the next time, so that they can live to be big and strong and mate and pass on those wonderful genes that make their species such a success. I think it would be entirely different if the predators were to be successful every time they tried something. Okay, what's the update? We're getting an update from what's happening at Arathusa, which is where we're heading, just in case there's something in. Hippos are looking pretty active on Arathusa Dam. Well, we're heading west. We're going to aim for Arathusa. See if we can spend a bit of time there and see what we can find over there. Also, just to see different areas, some of the variety of different habitats that are available or that exist here in the Sabi Sands, different little ecotones. Interesting how that troop of baboons came to visit and they stayed sort of a night or two and then they left. Hello boys. Hello boys. Winland on Twitter, thanks for the question there. I need to look that up. Wild honeysuckle, is it related to the jasmine family? Well, I don't want to preempt that. I think let me look it up first. I'm guessing that it might well be. I'll get back to you on that, Winland. Nadia, Eugenia, St. Okay, it might take me a while because I've got to multitask now. Yeah, or you finding the leopard now while I'm in the book. And where are we going? First we're going to Taria, which is road. Okay, so all of you that are watching, if I drift off the road, all you have to do is shout road. If enough of you that shout it, just I should be able to hear it. So what was it? Taria was 154, and I don't think Jasmine was much further away from that. No. So Taria is from the Meliaceae, the mahogany family, woody shrubs or trees. By the way, the Taria is actually named after Georgia della Torre, who lived between 1607 and 1688. He was a professor of botany at Padua University, wherever Padua is. Sorry, I don't know Padua. So Taria is the Meliaceae, and the jasmine, Jasminoides, is JKL. Jasminoides is Jasminium, Jasminum 162, not too far away. Is the Oleaceae. The jasmine is actually the olive family, olive or jasmine. See there, I learned something new right now. The Oleaceae. I didn't know that the jasmine belonged to the Oleaceae. I mean, I know that the olives do. I mean, I'm quite familiar with the olive family, but I didn't know that the jasmine was part of the olive family. It's Latinized from the Persian name Yasmin, which is scrambling shrubs and road. It's hard to read when I have to turn the wheel that way. Elephant track. Asia, Africa, Australia, Southern Europe. 448 species. There are 10 species of jasmine in South Africa. 448 in the world. I guess I won't be blamed if I find a jasmine and I can't tell you what species it is. Although with only 10 in South Africa, sort of drop that volume, or rather drop that number down based on distribution, because there will be limiting factors about geographical isolation of species. I know we've got about 2 or 3 species here. Just hang on. Okay, you better go now. I'm about to cross paths with another vehicle, so you can go off to Scott so I can talk to this landy. Okay, bye. See you now. Oh, schön.
Myself and Brian, we gave up on the paradise flycatcher nest, folks. We stayed there for about another 20 minutes and they didn't come back, but hopefully in the coming days we'll be able to go there and find them on the nest. Like I said, they're incredibly beautiful birds. But we have made our way across to something else, so let's see what we have to show you over here. Now, for those of you who were watching this morning's drive with Mark, he was viewing this lioness, as well as another one and a male that we'll pan across to a little bit later. And as you can see, she is just relaxing in the shade of a marula tree. There's a beautiful cool breeze and you'll see the grass blowing, so thankfully when you are in the shade we do have a nice cooling breeze. And she's just been looking back across at the other lioness. Oh, it looks like, oh no, we've just missed something here. The other two have just got up and started mating. I'm going to try and get back quickly. Well, folks, we got you the last second of that, and what you did see was probably the most exciting part of lions mating, and that is once they have actually finished you hear a little bit of a growl. And apologies for missing that, but we were so captivated in this other lioness and we didn't expect the other two to get up. They were fast asleep just a few seconds ago. But we're not going anywhere, and they will continue to mate throughout the course of the afternoon. So I'm just going to get back into position where we can view the other lioness a little bit better, and I will now keep a closer eye on these other two. We can expect them to mate again in hopefully 15 minutes, possibly less than that. They do mate very often, especially in the cooler hours of the afternoon. So we won't be going anywhere. We'll certainly be enjoying the rest of the afternoon with these animals. I haven't seen lions mating since I was in Kenya. The last time I saw that, and it was when I first went to Kenya in the beginning of 2012 was the last time I actually saw lions mating. So I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully going to snap off 1 or 2 pictures too. In all likelihood, the pair that did just mate will move before they mate again. So rather than trying to get into a position to view them now, I'd rather wait for them to get up and move, and then we will make the according adjustments depending on where they get to. I could hear the other lioness contact calling, and now we can see this one contact calling back to this lioness. It's a very soft murmur or purr that you would hear. And they just literally gave one little contact to one another, just to reaffirm their bond. And that was interesting to see, and I believe for those of you who were watching this morning, you did get to see some good lion audio and vocalizations with Mark, which is great, and hopefully they will vocalize again this evening. Questions just come through from Sharon. Good afternoon, Sharon, and welcome on board. Sharon's asking how many times the lion will mate, and it's anywhere from 3 to 5 days, roughly every 20 minutes. So that equates to about 72 copulations per day, and depending on whether it's 3 to 5 days, anywhere from therefore 200 to 350 or so copulations during the mating process. So that's a rough figure, anywhere between 200 and, let's call it 300 copulations, potentially a little bit more if they add it every 20 minutes. Obviously during the heat of the day they don't stick to this 20-minute cycle, and there'll be a major lull. But as it starts to get cooler, like now, we can expect an increased rate of mating. So that's kind of a rough figure that comes to my mind, and I guess a lot will depend on each individual interaction. But good question, Sharon, and yes, it is certainly a massive amounts of copulations in a very short period of time. So they are making as sure as they can that the next generation of lions does come through into the area, which is great. Oh, they've just got up and moved. I think we do have a good angle here for now, depending on what this lioness does. He will continue to follow her every time she gets up. He will not leave her side, but this time she didn't present herself to him, and I think she was simply getting out of the shade, getting out of the sun and back into the shade where she was initially lying. So, a false alarm there. But like I say, it is cooling down and the intensity will pick up as the afternoon continues. But for now, all of the line in this area have got their heads flat on the grass, and it will continue to be up and down for the next hour or so, and then I'm hoping things will start to heat up. A question has just come through from Don. Good afternoon, Don, and welcome on board. Don is asking, due to the number of different lion sightings that we've had this morning, is it common for lions' territories to overlap? To a degree, yes, territories will overlap, and there will be grey areas where some prides do mingle onto other prides' territories, but again, there's no defined size or exact size I could give you, but they do overlap, and that is fairly common. But I think what we can also understand about this situation is that there may be certain prides in this area that have simply split up, and that is why we are viewing different lions in different areas today. A lot of the lions may be members of the same pride or coalition, so that is something to bear in mind. Sadly, during my time here, we haven't spent too much time with the lions, so my personal insights into this matter is not very deep. But what I do know is that they do overlap, and that in all likelihood, the different lion that you saw today could well be from the same pride, but have simply split up, and that is common with lion. Now, while we're sitting here, I've just seen another bird's nest, and I'm not sure what the bird was that flew into it, but while these lions are asleep, we may as well pan across to this hole and see what bird flies out. I just saw its tail going in to the hole, very low off the ground, so it's going to be interesting to see what it is. It could be a woodpecker, is my guess. But let's wait and see what flies out of this hole. And the view that we have of this little nest is kind of in line with the mating line. So if they do move a muscle, we will be pointed in the right direction to swivel across. Excuse me. Ooh. I'm hoping that we are going to be a little bit luckier with this nest than with the last one that we sat with, because we were probably at the last one for close on an hour, waiting for the adults to return, but they didn't. This situation, however, is slightly different because we are waiting for the lion to do something, and as soon as they do, we can pan across to them. But at the moment, I think it would be more interesting to know what is nesting in this hole than looking at the golden blobs that are flat in the grass surrounding us, which are the lion. Alex, I think Alex, you're coming through on my chip. Okay, Mark and Alex are just sorting out some radio issues. Alex, that broadcast was coming through on my channel. Okay, copy, perfect. Well, the good news is, folks, that Mark has found something that he would like to show you. So we will be sure to cut back if these lions do anything, and until then, enjoy what Mark has in store for you.
Just leave the stalk, go sit with that elephant. Yes, I'm back on channel 2. If lion are sleeping, we can always come here and then we can go back to them if they start waking up. Try and hide the windsock. Alex come in. I don't know if you're trying to contact me on 2. I'm not picking up anything on 2. It seems that I can hear you better on 1 unless you haven't been contacting me. Okay, I asked you please if you could cut to us for a brief moment if the lion is sleeping. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I seem to be having radio problems. Thank you for that. So hard when miscommunication, or rather when communications fail. We're in an awesome and absolutely amazing situation here. We've got a herd of elephants in the distance and this wonderful big bull close to us. I'm going to try and move again just so that we can keep our perspective, but also just as far as the light is concerned, I was really worried we were going to miss this. If the lion are mating, they're going to get up and they're going to, many minutes they're going to sleep, and it's just nice. The other beautiful thing is that we've got a white stork out here in the open area, a beautiful herd of elephant in the distance, and this absolutely magnificent bull that is now about to come and okay, I can't do that anymore. Maybe I can. I saw it west of you, Mr. Ellie. Wildebeest are here. So as he used to browse and graze a little bit, I just want to get the light right because we've got the most incredible greenery with regards to elephant right now. These big open areas. This is a big open area here on Arathusa, which is the airstrip. Just to confirm, I'm staying on channel 1 for now. And right behind this wonderful big Ellie bull, which actually might be obscured for you because I'm sitting a little bit forward.
That's there.
You got him? The white stork. And I'm just wondering if any of you sort of somewhere in Europe, Southern Europe, Western Europe, recognize this particular stork as one that might be nesting on your chimney in your summer, visiting Africa for your winter. Such a fantastic bull. Look at him. He reminds me of my big friend Joseph from Salou back in the 90s. And even better than that is that the distance. We've got a beautiful herd of Ellies out in the open. It's this almost an iconic kind of moment, almost an iconic picture of savanna ecosystem, even if it is a little bit artificial. Been trying to sort of stay a little bit west of him. The other beautiful thing about where we are right now is we've got wildebeest. There's some I've even just noticed some giraffe, wildebeest, impala, giraffe and zebra just behind us, and that lovely herd of elephant further up way in the distance that we're going to be able to. I don't know how that's going to come out for you because I don't know how that works with the camera, but as he moves in front of us, it's remarkably similar to a big old elephant I used to know called Joseph. onto this little track over here because he's turning a little bit into the sun. It's not very nice to really get the full sun on him with the dark greenery in the background while we're moving, because he's not going anywhere. Wildebeest are relaxed, impala are relaxed, there's giraffe to the south of us. It's almost, well, it's tranquil, but it's peaceful, but it's almost surreal with so many little things happening. There's the giraffe and wildebeest and zebra off to the south. Might not be a lone female giraffe. I don't think that she's alone. We'll maybe get to those other areas. Of course, we've also got Scott sitting with the lion that have been mating, and it'd be nice to switch back to him shortly. But I can't resist this, folks. I mean, we have to just have a really beautiful view of this magnificent bull. The white stork in the background, the very typical stork that nests in chimney stacks and roofs in parts of Europe. Hi Joanne. This is a Joanne in Arizona. Can I approximate his age? Is there a way to try and guess the age of a bull like this? Not really. He's big, he's got a very impressive set of tusks, and tusks are not always an indication of age, although the thickness of the tusks most certainly can be, not necessarily the length. But my guess would be that he's in his maybe mid-30s. That would be my guess. Okay, copied, we can go. So we might just head back to Scott. Scott's saying there might be a little bit of action happening there, so
folks, we got back again just in time, and it was short, but what a great view we had from directly in front of them. And they'd only been at it literally 1 or 2 seconds before you did come across to us, so it's not a lengthy process. And basically, as soon as they got up, I got Mark to link back to us. So thanks, Mark, for linking back so quickly. And I hope you all enjoyed that. I'm just going to reverse now because you have a view of them, as you can see. Oh, there's a big hole there that I forgot about. Just try and avoid to keep Brian and our camera in one piece. We're okay or not? For now, I think let's try and get a better view of the two that have been mating. are 2 other game viewers with us in the sighting, which is wonderful. And there's others also enjoying the great afternoon. Well, as you can see, the lioness has just got up and moved again. And why exactly, I'm not sure, because she was in the shade where she was lying down. Now, either way, we've still got a fairly decent view of the male, and I'm just keeping an eye on the other lioness. He does appear to be a little bit more active than these two. But it's that stage of the afternoon where they chop and change from lying down to getting up. So I think if we just be patient here, we'll be sure to get another great sighting of them mating. I wonder where this individual's brother ended up. He was here yesterday with these animals. I've got a question from John in Connecticut. Good afternoon, John. How are you doing? And John is asking whether I know which pride this member's from. I have been told he is from a coalition called the Matimbas, and there are a few more. I think there's 3 or 4 of them in total. But sadly, we haven't been very lucky with lion sightings, or maybe I'm speaking on behalf of myself. So I haven't spent much time with the lion, and therefore don't know a great amount about them. But I have been told he is from a coalition called the Matimbas. So I'm not sure if you follow them closely on Facebook. We do have some viewers that follow the different lions and leopard, a lot of which have their own Facebook pages and are followed quite closely. So John may be wanting to look up this coalition. Where's that other lion is garnish? Oh. There. Let's see if we has got up again, the one he's been mating with, so there's a chance they will mate again. Let's see if we can get into a decent spot. Come on. Sadly, no luck. They didn't actually mate again there. But the male, like I said, doesn't leave her side, so she was just repositioning again. And he was hot on her heels, but they did not mate, so he didn't miss anything there. And you can possibly hear the other vehicles repositioning, all in anticipation of their next potential move. And once they have all got into their position, I will do the same. What I'm hoping is that they are going to get up, and if she does come slightly towards us, she'll be in perfect sunlight. The sun is behind us, so we will get some stunning shots if she does come towards us for the next copulation. And it is the female that makes the calls as to when it's going to be. When she gets up and presents herself, the male then acts on her movements. He doesn't put pressure on her. Initially that is very different. The male will put huge pressure on the female, but once he has won her over, then the ball is in her court as to when and how often they will mate. Hard to believe you're looking at a big male lion in this shot. If you had just come into the room a few seconds ago, you may be wondering what we were looking at. But there is indeed both a big male and a lioness lying in this long grass. It's incredible how quickly all the grass seeds have come up. In a matter of weeks, we've noticed a huge difference in the grass, and especially these long stalks with all the different seeds on them. Very, very pretty, but slightly obscuring our view of the lions at the moment. We've just got a question through from Gertruda. Good afternoon, Gertruda, and welcome on board. Gertruda's asking whether a lion mate throughout the year, and indeed they do. A lot of the predators, and especially the cats, will mate. A vulture just flew over, that's why they pricked their heads up quickly. A hooded vulture, which would be looking for some of their feces to feed on. An unthinkable dish, but for the hooded vulture, a delicacy. But back to Gertruda's question on whether lions will mate throughout the year. Unlike herbivores, predators don't have a huge advantage of giving birth in a specific season because their food is typically plentiful year-round. Unlike that of herbivores, who in this area rely on the summer rainfalls to get the most nutrients out of the vegetation, so they will come into season whenever it makes sense for them. So for example, a lioness and or a leopardess may have raised cubs to maturity, to around 18 months to 2 years of age, and then be ready to mate with the next lion or potentially the same father to give birth to the next generation. And it doesn't matter what time of year it is that she does finish raising cubs. As soon as she's ready, she'll come into season and then mate. And the same goes for leopard. We can take Karula, for example, who lost her cubs very recently. She will come into season as soon as a week after she's lost her cubs in order to start the process of getting the next generation into the system. So, good question, Gertruda, but the cats and most predators don't have a specific time of year. Oh, that's a beautiful shot. That they mate. Come on, get up and walk towards us. Please. Pretty, pretty please. Will mate with any of the females that are in season, and it doesn't matter if there's more than one, it just means he's got a lot of work on his hands. For example, if she was in season, he would just alternate between the two, and that is important because if other males from another coalition were to mate with the same members of a pride of lionesses or various members, they would risk running into problems whenever they bumped into either coalition of males, because those males would potentially know that another male's side cubs that are not theirs, and they will therefore kill them. So it's important that especially animals from the same coalition mate with a pride, and in most situations within a coalition there will be one male that's dominant and ensure that he gets all the mating rights. So I hope that answers your question, dear. Just to let you know, while you were viewing what I believe is a beautiful elephant bull with Mark, we did keep an eye on the nest that we were watching just before you cut back to Mark, and we didn't see anything come out of it, so we're not sure who was nesting in a little stump nearby these line. We sadly can't see that stump anymore from where we are, but that's just an update on the little nest we were viewing. Got another question that's just come through from Angela in North Carolina. Good afternoon. Angela's asking whether lions will feed during mating, and typically the answer to that question would be no. Their main focus during this stage is to simply mate, but there are certainly circumstances where animals stumble across or into the mating line, and the lion then take that opportunity to catch a prey item and feed. But there's a strong chance that these lions will not move a very big distance, and by not moving very big distances they are limiting their amounts of potential kills, so they probably will not feed and simply focus on mating for the next few days. But if something stumbles across them, they'll certainly trigger that hunting instinct and try and take it down. It'll be interesting to see. These animals were exactly in the same spot that they are now last night, and that's very abnormal for lions unless they've got a kill. So that also just reaffirms the fact that they don't move very far while they're mating, or at all. Thanks for that question there, Angela. How much longer will it be till she gets up? Okay, well, there is good news, and that is while we wait for these lions to get up again, Mark has found some more interesting animals for you to observe, so enjoy, and we will call you as soon as these lions put their heads up.
Probably one of the most magnificent sights that I could ever show you on a Saturday afternoon here in South Africa is the lush green vegetation of an exceptional summer and the presence of a wonderful big bull elephant against that backdrop. He is incredible. But we've also got the gift of really beautiful light this afternoon, and shadows, and well, it's just an awesome thing. I tried to get closer to the herd earlier, the rest of the herd that had crossed north of us on the airstrip, but they'd moved off into some bush, and well, it would have been a little bit awkward trying to find one of them. So we came back to this wonderful bull. We're with a bunch of zebra just to the west of us, a bunch of zebra and wildebeest, and the stork that was actually moving relatively close to this Ellie is also here, and although it's walking away, it was actually very, very close to us. One of the white storks that comes in summers with us during the European winter. This is the white stork from Europe. I guess kind of the iconic stork that one gets to see nesting on chimneys and roofs in parts of Holland and Germany, and well, you tell me where else. Beautiful setting with late afternoon and the zebra and wildebeest. There's some impala in the distance. There was a giraffe here earlier, but she seems to have moved off. And we're going to see what this Ellie bull's going to do. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is just going to wander a little bit closer to this big Ellie bull. You know, it would be funny if the stork actually nested on one of your roofs, those of you who are watching from Europe. This exact individual. Oh, some ducks flying over. Comb-billed ducks, also known as the knob-billed ducks. They should be nesting in some of these little pans. Pick sooner. I hope I see some. Look, this baby leadwood right in front of us. 20-year-old leadwood, barely 2 feet of ground. Tambo buena tembo. And again, I'm going to move a little closer. You have to be a little bit careful of the ground here. You can see how the grass has changed closer to the little dip where he's standing. It probably gets a little bit muddy down there. So we just want to sort of get to about here. There's a bit of a mud wall. I'm hoping that maybe We'll splash some of that. Am I in the way? I'm good. Okay. He's pulled the branch down off of this knobthorn and he's feeding on some of the branchlets and the leaves, tips of the branches. You notice that he's not flapping his ears as much as they do during the heat of the day. At the moment there's a fairly cool breeze blowing. Temperatures are probably around mid-20s at the moment, but there is a bit of a breeze blowing coming from off to the sort of his rear left or our right, the southeast, and I guess cool enough with him standing in the shade that he's not really fanning his ears as much as they do in the heat. But an elephant at peace and remarkably very passive with us sitting so close by. Can't tell you, I can't explain to you the feeling of just sitting in these circumstances, sitting in an open vehicle in the presence of a giant like this, and there's no feeling of threat, there's no feeling of malice or aggression, there's absolutely no negative energy whatsoever. It's the most peaceful and calming, relaxing energy that we're picking up. Going on what we were talking about earlier about how animals perceive things, and I think a lot of it is how we approach nature and what we have in our mind and in our hearts, and while a lot of times animals can't really wait to pick up on that, a lot of the time it's things happen too quickly, but where survival isn't a major issue and where fight or flight instinct doesn't have to kick in immediately, they are, oh, he's going to stretch, watch this is going to be incredible, watch how he stretches, going to pull down another big branch, or try to. That's not going to be a big one. Yeah, you got to wrap your trunk around it. Well, that's good for another 10 or 15 minutes of entertainment as he feeds on these branches and the twigs of this knobthorn. You see, eventually what's going to happen is that this knobthorn is going to get so high because all the low branches are going to be pulled down from elephants and giraffe and things feeding over the years, that essentially the crown is not really going to offer very much in the way of nutrition to the large mammals. And it's at times like that that you're going to find where the elephant are going to ring bark the tree and cause its decline so that it feeds the soil again and gives life to all of these other plants that are growing underneath it and feed the soil for them to grow bigger. A very typical posture too is just crossing of the back legs. It's sort of their way of taking a bit of weight off, crossing the legs. Also, you know that when an elephant stands like that with his legs crossed, or sometimes hers, you know that they're not going anywhere for a little while. He's going to be feeding on that big branch that he's just broken off for a little bit now. Tiny little clouds in the west that are just giving us a bit of shade for now, but I think the light's going to come back pretty soon. Alex, just checking comms. Okay, copy, thanks. Okay, sounds good. We're going to go back to Scott, who's going to have to move away from those lions soon. There are evidently a bunch of vehicles that are going to be lining up for that. So while Scott's still seeing the last of the lion for the afternoon, let's go over to Scott and see what he has for you. And we'll stick around here with the elephant and see what else might transpire here on Arathusa. I'll see you shortly, everyone, for the sunset, perhaps. Early sunset.
Welcome back. And sadly these lion have not done anything since you last left us. We're hoping now just to spend a few more minutes with them before we need to make space for other vehicles. We've been here a long time and seen two great views of them finishing off their mating, and hopefully before the next vehicle arrives here they'll get up and mate again. If not though, it's been great, and it is important for us to share the sighting. It's something very special that all the people that are out here on holiday would like to see, so we've spent a lot longer than we actually should have here, so I may have to buy the guide some beers to repent for staying here too long. But that, thankfully, is my problem, not yours. And it is just important to maintain good relationships with all the guides, and to do that you do have to be fair and share as much of all of these great sightings that we have amongst one another. I thought I heard another vehicle approaching. And it is. So, folks, from these lion that are currently sleeping, and from myself and Brian, we are going to move out of this area, and therefore I think it would probably be best to cut back to Mark, who does have what sounds like a wonderful elephant sighting that you can enjoy.
Welcome back, everybody. It sounds like Scott is going to reach for another branch. This one might not. Yes. No. I think he was summing up his chances whether he would get another one. Might have to stretch for another one. He's still got a lot to feed on the one that he broke down. Welcome back to our elephant. And the best Saturday afternoon we could spend in summer. We've got lion mating. Now he's feeding on some grass, actually. He's ignoring the rest of the knobthorn. But fantastic Saturday afternoon here in Africa. Scott sitting with lion and we sitting with elephant. Two of Africa's most iconic. What are you doing that to, Mr. Ellie? Trunk over the tusk. Yeah, it looks like he's had a bit of a run-in with another bull. He's got a bit of a hole in his rump. Actually, it's almost where his testes would be. Alright, time to see where he's off to. Let's follow him a little bit. back to the airstrip. Maybe back to the airstrip. The water buck. Might get a nice shot of this water buck. Two of them, two bulls. Let's get horns through horns. Tell me when to stop.
You got it, you nailed it.
There. Or back in it. Yeah. Oh, the other one moved, but he'll turn his head now. That's beautiful. Waterbuck bulls adding to the number of species. Oh, look, wildebeest and impala tearing through the bush coming towards us. Don't know whether something's on their tail, but the fact that they're running the way they are, something's going on. So we're just going to sit here quietly. I can't see the elephant, but the fact that all of this is happening has to have been something going on further back. Everybody's stopping and watching. It's hard really to point the camera in the right direction, but impala, wildebeest, everything come tearing out of the western part of the airstrip. We need to go and have a look, investigate. I don't know what this has done for the ellie. But oh, just impala and other animals flooding this side of the airstrip. Actually can't hit them. Ah, okay, well that explains it then. Human, looks like one of the guards, unless he's just looking, being an idiot. Elephant's actually taken off. One of the vehicles stopped up there towards Buffalo Pan on the airstrip and just called whatsoever. But just one of the guides that stopped with his guests, but he's taken quite a long walk away from the vehicle and obviously affected all the animals just by being ran the way they did, but alarming the way they would if there was a predator. Oh, look there, Kundal ducks with these Egyptian geese. Two females of the what we used to know as knob-billed ducks, waddling after the geese with crowned plovers. There's another female on the other side of the geese too. So we're going to follow the ellie bull. He's moved off a little bit. He's still here on the road. Don't want to disturb the ducks and geese too much. We've already got one. Ah, and there they go. Sorry, children. And you, little Mrs. Duck, you better fly because they're going without you. Excuse me, they've all gone. Don't know if you noticed, but they've all flown away. They've left you behind. We'll go to the elephant. some of the wrinkles of his skin, and maybe a closer look at the temporal gland. And let's look at that. He's got his hand, his foot, his hand on a log. But he's looking at me. I can see his eye looking directly at me as I came around here. But he's accepting our presence, which is very good. Not many elephants that would tolerate this. It's looking a little bit painful under his tail. It looks like it's quite septic. He's got a hole in his bum, possibly from a tusk. Looks like a little bit of a swelling there and a little bit of pus. Now, one thing I need to tell you also is that elephants have internal testes. The testes are quite high up in the body, and that's sort of more or less the bottom end of it, or rather the southern end of his scrotum. Got a little bit of an injury there that I guess judging by the color of it, it's getting a little bit, maybe a bit septic, and a little bit of an ulcer developing. Hello, Mr. Ellie. Hello, James. James was tweeting a question about the birds are calling in the background. Well, there are a bunch of... Problem is that the time frame between when the question comes in and what might be calling at the time might be different. So I'm not too sure which ones were calling when the question came in. That's a bit of a difficult question. As much as we like to try and do things live, I'm not too sure which birds there are at the moment. Magpie shrikes, there were red-billed buffalo weavers, there were starlings twittering. He's trying to find some lush vegetation in amongst all of this dead wood that has fallen down from the knobthorn. And remember when I was telling you about how the branches that fall down off dead trees tend to protect things? Well, only to some extent, because this elephant has now taken entire what looks like maybe a comifera, if I'm not mistaken. That might have been growing here for a few years. Actually, that might even be a mahogany. Whatever it is, it was a sapling, it was a tree that he has now eaten. Broken it off, so it might recoppice and it might regrow. But there's vegetation in there that no other animal can reach, so he's having a bit of a field day with what he can reach. The other interesting thing I can point out, that while we're with this bull, and he does have this little bit of an injury on his butt, there's no doubt being irritated by the fact that his tail is swishing. It's interesting to see how he's curling his tail around his rump to actually keep it free of insects and things, and he's quite purposely swishing his tail over the injury every now and then, there, like that, curling it around. I guess it's a little bit uncomfortable for him. Looks a little bit swollen. But, well, that's what happens. An elephant bull, occasionally you fight with other elephant bulls and occasionally you get a tusk in your rump. And with the sun setting and he's moving off into this quarry thicket, I think we're going to leave him be. Let's go and see if we can see a bit of the sunset before the end of the day. There's a bank of cloud in the west that's going to obscure the actual major part of sunset. Well, we can catch a little bit of it now. We're in such a beautiful spot to do. Bye bye, Ellie. Thank you so much, Mr. Elephant. Guanatembo. Getting excited, I thought maybe running out of the bush. The way these animals came tearing out of there, but zebra is starting to come out onto the open, and there's the sunset behind this bank of cloud. It's not all about lions and elephants, it's also about zebras and sunsets. Flowers and trees. The impala are still quite concerned about something to the west. And I think that those guests and vehicle might have moved off. Although they can't be too concerned if they're heading back towards that western area of the airstrip. Interesting question from Marsha. While I'm answering this question, if you look at this zebra here on the left. By the way, now these impala are still looking at people walking, and I can still see this guard walking way off into the bush. But looking at this zebra, you can see the stripe quite down low on the thigh. How it must have been maybe attacked by a lion once. Oh, now it's turned around. But anyways, seems to have had a gash that healed and the stripe hasn't quite lined up. And once again, impala are affecting the behavior of the other animals by running off into the tree line. Something else that spooked them, I think. Marsha, hello Marsha in Kentucky. Marsha is asking about oh wait, something on the radio. Oh, 20. See, now I was distracted by the animals running, so now I forgot Marsha's question. Oh, this is so frustrating. Oh, about must. Just remembered the length of must in elephant bulls. And yes, Marsha, it does vary with age. The older the bulls, the longer the must period lasts, and that can last up to 3 months, or maybe a little bit longer than 3 months. Younger bulls, not as long. But invariably what happens within a local population of elephants is when you've got a big bull, especially like this big bull we've just seen, who either might be coming out of or into must. For most of the big bulls, must period tends to occur right about now in the height of summer, and as long as there are larger bulls around, they tend to suppress younger bulls from coming into must. But anywhere from a month to 3 months or a little bit longer, generally the sort of the must length, or the time of or the period of must in adult bulls. The older the bulls, and to some extent the older the bulls, the longer the must period, mostly because the presence of older bulls tends to suppress must in other bulls younger than them or less dominant. Animals quite alert. I think, Marsha, because I had my device that there's another question you asked that I don't think I got to, but I can't find it now. But yeah, we can't get to all the questions, which we do try, and quite often Alex does forward them to me to my private email, and I try to get to them. Sunset. Let's travel down the Jackal around. Interesting. Well, standing do that and head to tail, because the natural swishing of the tails does which I could do with right now because there are a lot of flies here. There's a jackal. Okay, next it looks like it might be one of the youngsters. Oh, he's running away. A little bit concerned with us. Maybe it's just the way that I stopped. I suddenly saw it. Where'd he go? There's there. Just the ears popping out from the grasses. Side striped jackal. Can you get much of a visual? You're a bit higher than me.
She's back. Yes.
then it lies down and it becomes invisible. I can see why he's taking a walk around. A walk about at sundown. Hello Ryan in Utah, and Ryan is asking a question referring to this elephant bull that we've seen with a little bit of an owie on his ear. Would we ever intervene? Ryan, with an injury like that, there's no need to intervene. The stress and what we would have to put that elephant through to basically the band-aid on, squeeze out some of the pus and inject an antibiotic. This is that elephant have to go through would put it in far more danger than an injury like that. But that's an injury that has occurred through fighting or putting his nose where it doesn't belong and getting some irate other elephant enough to have penetrated his thick skin, but he would have been able to emphatically say no to whatever it was that this elephant wanted. And there are times when one would intervene, when one would be able to sum up danger to the individual animal's well-being, given how much stress and what it has to go through for it to take place. It requires darting an animal, it requires putting it through 1,000 times more stressful conditions than just the injury alone. But we're also dealing with the population of more elephants, and with so many elephants, you can't keep track of every elephant. There aren't enough veterinary surgeons or vets in this country to take care of just the elephant population, never mind the giraffes and the buffalo and the lions and everybody else. I think that the bottom line is really, this is nature, and it's been doing this for millions of years, so how can we even think of intervening? That's the way things work. It's not life-threatening, it's certainly not affecting his behavior. It might be irritating him, like maybe I had a boo-boo on my hand, or I've stubbed my toe, or I've sprained it, whatever the case may be. We get over our little injuries, our cuts and bruises. It's what we do. Those of us in the human world, we're lucky we have things like antibiotics and antihistamines and antiseptics and all sorts of things that help us get over things. But for animals, they have other things. They have mud, and they have dust, and they have water, and they have sand, and they have plants, tree trunks to rub against. There are ways that animals deal with their injuries that don't need our intervention, because our intervention actually can lead to far worse problems and far worse conditions. So an incident like this, or a case like this, he's far better left to heal on his own than for us, because I'll tell you what it'll entail. It'll entail bringing in either a vehicle or a helicopter to follow him and be able to shoot a dart into him. That's traumatic incident number one. That he gets a really harsh sting on his rump or his shoulder, coming out of a lousy, or rather a very loud noise from a vehicle or a helicopter that he's not going to forget. and then he's going to feel woozy, and he's going to lie down, and he's going to think, God, what's happening to me? I can't move my legs, I can't move my trunk, I can hear everything, I can see everything, but I can't feel anything, I can't feel my legs, I can't move, what's happening to me? And the next thing he knows, there are vehicles and humans crawling all over him, and needles, and I mean, it's probably the epitome of like an alien abduction for an animal, as far as trauma is concerned, except they don't have the little little white flashy pen thing that makes you forget about it, like in Men in Black. But he's going to have to suffer the trauma of all of that, being able to hear it, being able to see it, being able to feel all of these things happening to him, and yet he's going to be panicking because his muscles are not working to defend himself. He's not going to be able to move a muscle. And yes, it might help him heal a little wound that's suppurating a little bit. But it's going to leave him with an indelible memory, and it's going to leave him with very bad feelings. And if he even comes out of it, because it's been proven that darting animals can put them into a state of myopathy that actually gives them a heart attack and actually can kill them. So why would we even risk fixing a little boo-boo on an animal when we can kill it in the process? And nature's been doing it for millions of years, so we let them do what nature does. Heals in time, and there might be a little bit of a scar, it might be a little bit of an abscess that is left behind. Who knows, we might see him in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years time, the little big one where the scar is. In fact, it's not going to be worse than where he is now, whereas we dart him and try and fix something. Going to make it worse. I'd rather spend that kind of money on anti-poaching or baby elephants from exported to China. Which reminds me, absolutely, I don't know, if there was a way to do that, I would. The sad thing is that an update on what I was telling you about is actually happening. It's in the process, because by the looks of things, the herds have already been culled and the babies have already been collected, and there are these young elephants in these enclosures that are being harassed by humans, and they're going to be put on ships or cargo planes or something and be shipped off to inhumane conditions. How do we stop it? I haven't the faintest idea. How do you stop a dictator from selling things to a government like China? Stop the process. How do you stop that transaction? A little bit of indignation, a lot of indignation, 1,000 people sign a petition. I don't think it would help if 500 million signed the petition. It would make absolutely no impact on the governments involved that are engaged in this transaction. Someone's getting something for a favor. Maybe it's mining rights. Maybe it's paying for Garvey's private jet. Who knows? What it is unstoppable. Thank you for pulling off the road. Excuse me folks, while I just say hello to somebody. We'll be with you shortly. Riperile. How's it going? Good, and you? Good, and you? Good. Hi everybody. Hi. Are you having a good time? Amazing. Good. I know. It's been amazing too. Yeah. Where are you headed? Airstrip? We're going towards the airstrip. Okay, cool. Enjoy. Bye. Well, we've had a lovely Saturday. I'm sorry to bring up something that does tug at the heartstrings of a lot of us, and I wish there was something that collectively millions of us in the world whether it's east or west. I'm sure there are just as many people in the Orient who are appalled at what is happening. I wish I had an answer what we can do. Anyway, having said that, we don't want to spoil our day really too much. It's a really awesome evening at the moment. Oh, there's some kudu bulls here. We've had a wonderful variety of animals on our screens this afternoon. We might just get some of these kudu bulls. Although, hang on, here might be. They're moving to the west. Just got to go further back a little bit. One, two, at least three big kudu bulls. Might be the kudu bulls that we've been seeing. Kudu bulls that we've been seeing for a little while. Just in the fading light of the evening, I think maybe a nice thing to look at. Nice thing to look at. But of course, getting a glimpse of them through this thicket. Let's see if we can get one big bull there. There's a little gap. Tommy went. Let's stop. Oh, and that other one's coming into this clearing now. Elephant bulls, kudu bulls, waterbuck bulls, impala rams, buffalo bulls, male lions. I think the been a boys' day, apart from the lovely lionesses and cubs that we saw, and the lioness being mated with. At least 4 kudu bulls. I'm wondering if it's not maybe the same group that we've been seeing for a little while. That's the slightly younger bull. Crossing triple leg already. First one has crossed the road. Maybe we'll be lucky we'll catch the others as they come out. And it'll be sort of our closing shot for the day. Magnificent kudu bulls. One of the biggest antelope that we have here. And also perhaps one of the most majestic. These big kudu bulls. And that might be as far as we can go without disturbing them. Come boys. I'm watching your back. You can come out into the open and cross the road now. One of them has crossed the road. 2 to go, I think. Not sure if it's the same group that we've been seeing for a while. We had a group of 5. Magnificent bull, this one. And I think next one's a slightly bigger bull. And there's a third still coming. Or the 4th. Hello boys. Crossing from Djuma into Arathusa. I was worried my hat was going to get in the way. That was lucky. Actually, I'm not even going to start up because it seems to be it's time to sort of say goodbye. And it's been a fantastic afternoon. Can only imagine what you might have seen because you've got the best of both of our cameras, so I'm sure you've seen a fantastic thing as well. So from my name, it's Mark, and BM has been on camera. Scott and Brian on the other vehicle, and Alex back in final control, all of us here at Wild Earth. Thanks for joining us. Do join us again for our Sunday, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock Central African time. And we'll be back again to see what we can bring you then. Bye everybody. Love you lots.